All right, welcome back to episode 2 of Mic'd Up. Today we have a loaded show for you guys. We're going to begin by talking about how Michigan basketball has been able to retain the majority of its roster despite Dusty May's departure for the NBA. And then we're going to talk about the wild free agency period that we've gotten so far. Bunch of crazy trades, bunch of crazy moves. Jaylen Brown being traded to the Sixers, Kawhi Leonard going back to Toronto, and LeBron James is still undecided on where he will play his next season. So let's jump into it. All right, kicking things off, we're going to talk about Michigan basketball. They have been able to retain the majority of their roster. We talked about in the last episode how Trey McKinney and Elliot Cadeau are obviously staying, but a lot of news has come out, and a lot of players are saying that they're staying at Michigan. So I'll give Brady the spotlight on this one because he's obviously a big Michigan guy. How important do you think it is for Michigan to be able to retain these guys, and how successful do you think they've been so far?
I think it's really important, and I think the biggest thing it comes down to is next year, obviously. No coach wants to come into a program with not a lot of guys that can win a game and win a season. So I forgot his name, the 7'2" center from Cincinnati. Everyone thought he was leaving, and we got his commitment. And then we got J.P. Estrada's commitment. So those were our two top transfers in the transfer portal. So those were two huge signings. And I think seeing guys committed to the program, especially for the assistant coach, he's done an amazing job. I want to give a shout out to him first of all. He's done an amazing job. But for the coach search, I don't know how a coach wouldn't want to come into this program. Everyone's bought in already. Everyone's bought in, and they want to be a part of here. We got news yesterday that Trey McKinney was getting tampered with, getting offered $5 to $6 million in the portal, and he said this is where he wants to be, and he stayed. Obviously, Elliot Cadeau gave his. He announced that he's staying. So I think the biggest thing is for the coach search and for the program just in general. These players are committed, and it's a bought-in program, and I think only positive from here on up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you just said. Obviously, I talked about how your leaders, going on social media and saying that, they will stay. That's a big deal, and I think it really has set the example. And obviously, the more and more players you retain, the more and more pressure it's going to put on these other guys. Like, say, I want to stay as well because they don't want to be known as, not loyal, or they don't want to be known as guys who leave, right? So the more and more players you get to retain, that's obviously important. And, I know I've seen some rankings come out about Michigan basketball falling out of the top 5. I don't think that's true. I think Michigan will still be an elite basketball team next year. They've got, obviously, the championship pieces in Trey McKinney and Elliot Cadeau, two guys that I think are going to blossom into some of the best players in the country, as much as it pains me to say as a Michigan State fan. But I really do think that those guys are going to have breakout seasons. They're obviously, looking to get into their NBA career, so they're motivated. Brandon McCoy, I think, is an excellent piece. He's obviously, big-time recruit. So, and some of the transfers that they've gotten obviously have big impacts. So I'm really interested to see how Michigan basketball continues to move forward, retaining the most of their roster. That's obviously very important.
Yeah, and the only problem with Dusty leaving at this time right now, and Mike, I forgot his last name, our interim coach has done an amazing job, but this kind of has to reset and messes with our 2027 recruiting class, because obviously in all college sports you have to be looking to the future and the present. So I think that's the biggest part with Dusty leaving. But for the upcoming 2026 season, our interim coach has done an amazing job at retaining the players.
Alrighty, now the next thing we're going to be jumping into is really just NBA free agency in general in the offseason. So far, we have had so many crazy moves, but the biggest one that we got was Jaylen Brown, officially on the move. Jaylen Brown has been traded to the Philadelphia 76ers for Paul George and 2 first-round picks in 2028 and 2031, as well as 2 second-round picks in 2028 and 2030. Now, there's been a lot of discussion already so far about, Jaylen Brown to Philadelphia and, how the move shakes out for both teams. Brady, what do you think about this move? What's your initial reaction, and how do you think it's going to work out for both teams?
My initial reaction is Boston is stupid. They gave up the guy that was 6 MVP voting up for basically nothing. The Utah Jazz got the same amount of first-round picks for Walker Kessler that the Boston Celtics got for the person that was 6 in MVP voting, take that into consideration while we talk about this. But I love the move for 76ers. You add another two-way guy who's solidified on defense and offense. We know he can be the guy because he did it all last season while Tatum was hurt. So for the 76ers, I love the move. For the Celtics, I don't know what you were doing. This guy's at his peak market. You had Tatum gone for the season, and then what did he do? He stepped up. You had him at his peak high in the market, and you sold him for little? I didn't understand the trade for Boston, but for the 76ers, it's a great piece. You add him to a roster that already had a bunch of young talent with Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. Joel Embiid, I mean, obviously he's question mark because he's never healthy. But if you get a healthy Joel Embiid, even playing in the playoffs, let alone, that's a team that can definitely take over the East. We saw them upset Boston last season in the first round as a 7 seed. So adding a guy that finished 6th in MVP voting and is kind of filling in that forward spot that you kind of needed, it's an amazing trade for for Philly.
I'll start off my take by trying to reason with the Celtic front office. Number one, I think Brad Stevens in the Celtic front office had felt that this relationship with Jaylen Brown had broken beyond repair. He felt disrespected probably. He had been offered up twice. Remember, he got offered up for Kevin Durant back in 2022, and then this offseason, offered up for Giannis Antetokounmpo, which, honestly, those two players kind of sound flattering to be offered up for. You know, those are two of the greatest players in the game. So, but he probably felt also that he was the number one option. We know he felt that way, right? There's no way you go on live stream, like I said, and say that this was your favorite year. You're a guy who averaged 30, finished 6th in MVP voting, and carried the Boston Celtics the majority of the season without Jason Tatum. He probably felt like he was the guy, and he probably felt like it was time for his own team. So he felt disrespected, and that relationship had deteriorated for sure. Number two, Boston had an interesting decision when it came to his contract. He was eligible for extension this July for around 2 years, $145 million. I don't think Boston wanted to pay that. They had an interesting decision to make with his contract, and you don't want to pay that because by the time that extension would take effect, it would be around the 2029-2030 season, right? Now you're looking at extending Jason Tatum as well the next year. So 2 years, $145 million. That's about $70 million annually. Now you're looking at trying to pay two guys $70 million annually. That's pushing you pretty close to the second apron, and you're facing luxury taxes. That might have been something that the Celtics didn't want to dip into because then they don't have as much flexibility to go out and build a team around those two guys. So that's number two. And number three, I think very unlikely. Jaylen Brown has actually he actually had the Celtics at a worse net rating when he was on the floor. Boston was outscored by their opponents more when he was on the floor than when he was on the bench. I find that very unlikely. However, disregard everything I just said because I am appalled and I am taken aback by what I've just seen the Boston Celtics do. First of all, it's a simple fact that you're trading a 29-year-old, a guy who won Finals MVP for you 2 years ago, a guy who averaged 29, 7, and 5 a night, and willed your team to the second seed in the East without Jason Tatum, for a 36-year-old who's on the back end of his career and is an aging role player. That's the simplest way I can put it. Now, the most confusing part about it is the way Boston's handled this offseason so far. Because they're making win now moves, right? They tried to trade for Giannis. That's a premium player. If they had gotten Giannis, it's an equal trade. You get equal return. You get a premium player for a premium player. That's a win now move. Then you go out and sign Mitchell Robinson to a 3-year deal. That's a win now move. We saw the way that he impacted the Knicks during that playoff run, and he's one of the best offensive rebounders in the game. That is a win now move. This is a move that you made last year. This would have made sense last year when you let Al Horford walk in free agency. You traded Kristaps Porzingis. You traded Drew Holiday to get out of the second apron. This is a move where you salary dump last year. This couldn't have been a salary dump. This could not have been a salary dump because you owe Paul George $54 million next year. So you're talking about a difference between about $9 million between these guys. And then you owe him $56 million the next year, assuming he opts into his player option. So this could not have been a salary dump. By the way, that Paul George contract is one of the least team-friendly in the league. That's a horrible contract for a guy who is obviously in decline. That's my third reason why it doesn't make sense. He's obviously declining. You know he's a declining asset. He's averaging only 17 a game. He's dropped off from 23 a game a couple years ago. He's no longer available. Get this stat. 79 games during the 2 years in Philadelphia. He played in 79 games. He's only played in above 56 games in a season one time since 2018-19. That was before he was traded to the Los Angeles Clippers. So we're talking about a guy who does not play a lot of games, and he's very injury prone. He obviously was suspended last year for the drug policy thing, and now he is going to a team that just traded away, like you said, their MVP candidate. For Boston, this makes no sense. You're going to have to get huge production out of the guys off the bench now. Jordan Walsh, Hugo Gonzalez, Peyton Pritchard, Baylor Shireman. You're going to have to get a bunch of production to just make up for this, right? For Philadelphia, it's great. Boston, it doesn't make sense for them. Philadelphia, it's great. First of all, you solve the hole at forward, like you said. Kelly Oubre was not going to cut it anymore. They signed Dean Wade earlier in the offseason, which kind of seemed like a worthwhile signing at the time, but now you go out and get Jaylen Brown. That's a big-time move. He's elite defensively. We know what he can do offensively, but defensively he's elite. He's a guy who can guard, who can help you contend in the East. He's a guy who can guard guys like Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell, and other elite players like that. So Philadelphia, you also pair him with the excellent backcourt you already have, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe. You pair him with an excellent center when he's healthy, which is a big if, but it's definitely a worthwhile shot to take. And you know what I think the funniest part of all this is Jaylen Brown is still not the guy on Philadelphia. He is still not the guy. He went from arguably he's having a lesser role. Okay, think about it. He had a usage rate of 36% last year, okay? He's going to a team with Tyrese Maxey, who had a usage rate of 30%, okay? And now Joel Embiid also hasn't had a lower usage rate than 33% in his entire career. So there's only one ball to go around. It's going to be an interesting fit in Philadelphia. I think it's obviously a great trade for them, and instantly propels them into Eastern Conference contention. But for Boston, it doesn't make sense, and it's just as simple as that.
Yeah, and I completely agree with everything you said, especially the Paul George contract. That's the least team-friendly thing ever. If you're trying to win now, which Paul George isn't that, you're only thing you're doing is clearing up a couple $1 million in salary cap, which is not for Paul George compared to Jaylen Brown. That makes zero sense. Second off, like I said earlier, you're not getting a lot of first-round picks, and let alone those are going to be late first-round picks. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It doesn't. What I will say is, though, I do think Jaylen Brown still will be the guy. I don't think he's going to have as much freedom as he did with Boston. When Embiid's out there, but that's very little. Tyrese Maxey's obviously a great scorer. We saw Tyrese Maxey last season. He had his best season of his career. I forgot how much he averaged, but I think it'll be a fun team to watch. But I do think this team, they have three different people that want to be the guy and want to be the leading scorer.
Right, I agree. And it's like I said, and going back to Boston, it's like I said, this was a move that felt like it was under duress. It felt like they were pressured to make this move for some reason. I thought you could have waited it out. If you were going to trade Jaylen Brown, I thought you could have waited it out and seeing kind of how the landscape shaped out the rest of the offseason, to see what other kind of moves you could have made. This felt like they felt pressured by something. I don't know what it was, but again, this was a move that they should have made. They should have made it last year if they were going to make it. You were under the assumption that Jason Tatum was going to be out the entire year and you were going to take a step back and you wanted to clear some cap space for that. When Jason Tatum got back, you were able to have financial flexibility. This is not a move you make now. This is a move like this doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm just really shocked. I've always trusted the Celtic front office. I've always thought they're one of the best, but this doesn't make a lot of sense. And that, not to mention, they let Anthony Simons go. He's going to Philadelphia too. So, now you're losing more bench depth. It's really, really shocking to me, I think, at this. I don't understand it. I don't at all. And, if this was 7, 8 years ago, it's a great trade. Like I said, Paul George was an MVP candidate 7, 8 years ago. Okay, now he's on the back burner of his career. It's kind of like it doesn't make any sense at this point. But good for Jaylen Brown. He's going to go to a contending team, and I really think the Boston Celtics might have just handed the Philadelphia 76ers a possible finals trip. So it's shocking to me. Alrighty, the next topic we're going to be jumping into is, of course, Kawhi Leonard returning to the Toronto Raptors. He was traded in a package centered around Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 2 unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, a 2027 first-round pick swap, and 2 second-round picks in 2030 and 2033, which obviously will send Kawhi back to the Raptors. We talked about this move a little bit. It was speculation at that point, but now that it's actually happened, what do you think about this move for both teams, Toronto and the Clippers?
I like the trade for LA, to be honest. You get some draft capital for an aging superstar. I mean, he definitely is still an amazing player, don't get me wrong, but he is aging. He's not going to be in the league for not that much longer. And I also like it for the Raptors. You get a superstar that's returning home. I bet you the fans love it, to be honest. I mean, everyone loves that game-winning shot he had in the playoffs a couple years ago. But to be honest, I'm not too familiar with this Raptors lineup. I know they're young. They got good guys like Scotty Barnes and some key pieces. But I just don't know how I feel about the trade. You're giving up some draft capital for the Raptors, but I mean, if you're gonna try to make a win now push, I mean that's the right trade to make. That's the right trade to make.
I love this trade for Toronto. I really do. One of the things I noticed is they were a middle of the pack offense and a very good defense. That was shown in the playoffs, right? This is a team that, to me, they are adding an elite scorer. This guy who averages nearly 28 a game last year. Nearly 40% from 3 last year. So really just an excellent score. You also get a closer. This is a young team in Toronto who in the playoffs shown that they were young, right? They obviously had the game-winning shot with RJ Barrett, but they needed a closer. They needed a guy down the stretch. Like, this is the guy down the stretch. This is the scorer that Toronto needed. So now they get a better offense. They get a huge offensive upgrade to go along with their already incredible defense. And now you add one of the greatest perimeter defenders in the game. So you get better defensively, better offensively. To me, it's a great trade. And one of the things that I really love about this trade for Toronto, 2 things actually. One, they got to keep RJ Barrett. I thought RJ Barrett would have been included in this package. They shipped off Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick. You give up a young player in Grady Dick, but the fact that you were not able, you were able to keep RJ Barrett, to me, that's excellent. Secondly, I talked about on the other show that Toronto owned the next all 7 of their next 7 first-round picks. In this trade, they only gave up 3 first-round picks. Yeah, so they still are in control of 4 of their next 7 first-round picks. Not only can that be used in other trades to build a roster around Kawhi and Scotty Barnes, but also you're still in control of your draft capital. So, they gave up a decent amount of picks, but they still have 4 of their next 7 first-round picks. To me, that's pretty good for Kawhi Leonard. And actually, again, you get him at a lesser price than you did 8 years ago when you traded him when he was 27. He was worth more when he's 35. But if you look at it, he's had 2 excellent seasons in the last 3 years. I know we talk about his availability concerns with load management, but he's played 67 games this year, 65 games 2 years ago. He's playing games, so, and he's averaging 28 a night. That's his highest scoring average of his career, in fact. So, great trade for Toronto. I don't mind it for the Clippers either. Obviously, like you said, you get draft capital. And you get Brandon Ingram, who's a guy I think you can flip along with those picks that you just got for maybe even a better player. But this is Darius Garland's team now. This is a young team. They went from one of the oldest teams with Harden and Kawhi to one of the youngest. They're going to build around Darius Garland, Benedict Mathurin, and obviously Keaton Wagler, who they got in the draft this year. I like it for both sides. Really like it for Toronto. I mean, I think they can win the East with this squad. And this is all due to Scotty Barnes, by the way. If Scotty Barnes had not had the career year he had and convinced the Toronto front office to get him some help, this wouldn't have happened. So this is a great trade. I really think for Toronto. And like you said, I don't mind it for the Clippers either.
Yeah.
Is that good?
I actually like this trade a lot for the Clippers, and so my biggest takeaway is they're obviously a young team. They have a lot of guard play with Garland, Mathurin, and they just drafted Keaton Wagler. They're in rebuild phase. They have the young pieces, but they needed that draft capital to go out and get those guys they needed at other positions, even bench depth maybe. So I actually like this trade a lot for the Clippers. And you pointed out some facts to me that I wasn't thinking of. That's a great trade for the Raptors too. Now I'm hearing about it. I didn't. They're a top tier defense. You just got rid of Brandon Ingram, who's probably more of a defensive liability. And then you added one of the best defenders in the game. They call him the Claw for a reason. He's got the biggest hands. He's got the biggest hands I've ever seen. Kawhi's an amazing defender. We've known he's a great scorer. And also add some veteran. I mean, he's more of a veteran, or I don't know. That's maybe not my best point here. But the Raptors, that's a good trade. Grady Dick, I mean, I'd much rather give him up than R.J. Barrett.
Right. No, and I was honestly shocked by that. I was like, you're getting a guy like Kawhi. It's pretty good value. I mean, it is. It is. It's really not a bad trade at all. Brandon Ingram, he really did not play. He underperformed completely in the playoffs. He showed that he was not what this team needed. And like I said, I think Scotty Barnes' play and the career he had really convinced this Raptor front office to go out and make this move. This is a great move. And they're not. This is not a rental this time. Kawhi Leonard only stayed a year when he won the championship back 8 years ago. This is not a rental this time. He is willing to sign an extension. In fact, he told the Clipper front office that this is the only destination that you're going to trade me to that I'm willing to sign an extension. So it's great trade for Toronto. They're going to get him for a couple of years. It would be one thing. I know the age it might be a concern, the availability, but again, like I said, he's played 60+ games in 2 of the last 3 years. He was really good down the stretch in 2025, and he really carried this team this year offensively. He's playing some of the best basketball of his career, most efficient basketball of his career. I really like this trade completely. All right, the next thing we're going to jump into is the Los Angeles Lakers. They had a flurry of moves yesterday. They obviously picked up Walker Kessler on a 4-year, $130 million deal and sent an unprotected 2031 and 2033 first-round pick to the Jazz. Also, a 2028 first-round pick swap and a 2030 first-round pick swap. So the Jazz get 4 first-round picks. Walker Kessler signs a new deal with the Lakers. Again, I'll give you the first say on this one. What do you think about Walker Kessler going to the Lakers? What do you think about this move?
For the Lakers, I do like it. To a point, I do think 2 firsts is a lot for Walker Kessler, and I do think he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but they're also getting the higher picks. The Jazz are, and the Jazz already had too much big men. So I think it's a great move for the Jazz. To be honest, you get 4 first-round picks, and you get some much needed picks to build around Darren Peterson, Jaren Jackson, Lauri Markkanen. We saw Lauri Markkanen's a great player last season. He performed great. Jaren Jackson was obviously a little bit of injury, but you had Darren Peterson, who he didn't play a lot in college. His nickname was DMP Peterson, but we know Darren Peterson might have been arguably the best pure talent in the draft. If you can get Darren Peterson playing healthy with NBA level team doctors, because he said it was body cramps. You can that's manageable fix. It's not like a Achilles or anything like that. So I love this trade for the Jazz. First of all, for the Lakers, I like it to a point. Like I said, you need a center. That was obviously a given. You have 2 amazing guards. You have an amazing backcourt with Luka Doncic, who's arguably the best point guard in the NBA right now. And Austin Reeves, who's obviously another elite scorer. So you added a big man to a team that needed a big man. You're lacking the forwards, though, and they had a couple of free agency signings with Colin Sexton to add some bench depth. So the Lakers still are trying to be a win-now team, which they're proving by going out and getting Walker Kessler. But 4 first-round picks, or 2 unprotected and 2 pick swaps, I don't know if they overvalued Walker Kessler. But, they do get him on an extension. They have him for 4 years, which is nice, obviously.
Yeah, this is another move that I love. I'm really just say I'm loving all these moves right now. This is another move that I love for the Lakers. What was one of the first things that Luka Doncic had said? This is Luka Doncic's team, by the way. LeBron leaving,
Yeah.
this is Luka's team. They got to build around Luka now. And what was the first thing Luka said going into the offseason? What was the top priority? Get me an A-list center. And this is about as close to an A-list center you're going to get with this market. If you can't get Jaylen Duren, you go and get Walker Kessler. This was a move they had to make. He's a guy who can give you 10 to 15 a night. He's averaged almost 2 blocks his entire career, so he's an elite rim protector. He's not as explosive probably as Jaylen Duren. He's not the most explosive guy in the gym, but he's certainly a lob threat. He's 7-footer. He's certainly a guy who can, and also with an offense with Luka and Reeves, he's a guy who doesn't need a lot of control of the offense. He's not a guy who's going to take up most of possession. You just hand it to him in the post, he can go to work. It's not like he's going to be taking up the majority of the offense, and that's what you kind of need. That's a guy you kind of need with, Luka and Reeves running the offense. You have great depth at center now. They're going to send DeAndre Ayton to the bench. DeAndre Ayton was never the guy. Well, I guess the Lakers agreed with me. DeAndre Ayton was, in fact, not the guy. They just shipped him to Washington in return for Jaden Hardy and 2 future second-round picks. At the time we were recording this, DeAndre Ayton was still a Laker, but I wanted to let you guys know and give you guys an update. DeAndre Ayton has officially been traded to the Washington Wizards. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. He was never the center. That was not the center they needed. But he's a guy who can come off the bench. Got Jackson Hayes as well. So you get depth at bench. I think DeAndre Ayton becomes one of the best backup centers in the league. I mean, he's pretty good center still. But so you're getting, like I said, all those things plus some depth at center, which is something you really needed. And this was a move I think they had to make. They wanted this guy for over a year. They've been talking about getting Walker Kessler for a long time now. So they finally go out and get him. They get Luka his A-list center. If you want to consider him an A-list center, I think he has the capability of doing that. He's certainly an upgrade over DeAndre Ayton. So this was a move they had to make. And then I'll give a different perspective. I really like this move for the Jazz. And I think what a lot of people aren't talking about and what's very interesting about it is the picks that they got. If you look at the years, 2031 and 2033 unprotected first-round picks. So that means wherever the Lakers finish, the Jazz are getting those picks. 2031 and 2033 are pretty far off. If you think about it, 7 years, that could be the post-Luka era, could be past prime Luka. You're thinking about some Laker teams that might not be very good in a couple of years. They're getting those picks. Those picks could turn out to be pretty valuable in about 7 years from now. So I do really like what the Jazz got out of this. Like you said, they have a great young core. Keontae George was a breakout last year. Somehow they still have Lauri Markkanen past all these trade deadlines and off seasons. Jaren Jackson, he was obviously injured. He was injured, but I think he was injured. They were tanking, so he's probably, he's probably capable of playing next year. And then you get Darren Peterson, who, in my opinion, it's like 1A, 1B with Debanza. I mean, that guy would have gone number 1 last year. No, not last year, but most years he goes number 1. So it's, I really like this for the Jazz. I don't think a lot of people are talking about the picks. But then, obviously, like you mentioned, other signings. They got Colin Sexton, Sandro Mamukelashvili, which is a tough name to pronounce. But and then they also got Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes is an excellent signing. That's a great wing defender. He can guard 1 through 3 pretty well. He can shoot the ball really well. You really need shooters when you pair up with Luka and Reeves. And then Colin Sexton, high motor. What I think a lot of people aren't talking about is they lost Marcus Smart. They lost him to the Rockets. Colin Sexton's a guy who reminds me a little bit of Marcus Smart. He's a better scorer, in my opinion, but he's got the same kind of motor. He plays with high energy, and that's what they really got out of Marcus Smart during that first-round series against Houston. So I think that – I don't think it's a replacement, but certainly it adds depth, and certainly it suffices. And then, like I said, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name again. Sandro Mamukelashvili. You got him at forward. That kind of fixes the forward problem you have. Obviously LeBron leaving, probably going to lose Rui Hachimura to free agency. It's not great. It's not like something like, wow, like they have an elite forward now. But it's something that I think you needed to do. He can shoot the ball. He's a pretty good playmaker for his size. So, I really like this move for both sides. I know I've been saying that I like, a lot of the moves, but I do. I really do like this move for both sides.
Yeah, and to be honest, for the Lakers, I really don't know. I'm not saying it's a good trade or a bad trade. I love this trade for the Jazz. I really do. 5, 6
They're gonna be
years
good.
down the line,
They're gonna be good.
If you extend Peterson, and you get some. And like you said, Luka could be gone first off, or it could be past Luka's prime. You're going to have Darren Peterson at his peak. He's, 18, 19, 20 years old right now. I don't know the exact number. But you're going to have him at his peak when you have those picks. And Lakers could be a pretty bad team at that time. So I love this trade for the Jazz. And like I said, for the Lakers, Walker Kessler's an amazing big man. Don't get me wrong. It's just, for the Lakers, I don't know. You obviously have some questions at the forward right now. You don't have a complete roster. You don't. You have some good bench depth, but you don't have a starting forward or backup forward. You really don't. So I don't mind the trade for the Lakers, but I'm not saying I love it.
Yeah, and the one thing I forgot to mention is the contract that they got him for. 4 years, $130 million, which, what's that, $32.5 million annually? That's pretty good for a guy like Walker Kessler. Some of the offers that the Jazz had originally thrown out were 4 years, $150 million. I'm surprised that they got him at this value because, it looked like you were going to have to get him for $45 million. He's a restricted free agent, which means the Jazz could have matched any offer. But I think what Utah really wanted to do here, it's a sign and trade. Utah wanted to get some things back. They obviously got a lot of draft capital, and like you said, these could be some pretty bad Laker teams in 2031 and 2033. Like, there's potential that these picks turn out to be top 5, top 3, big-time lottery picks. And you're already adding to a very young, up-and-coming roster. So, great trade, I think, for both sides. Maybe average for the Lakers, now I think about it. But, you needed a center. And you weren't going to get Jaylen Duren, it looked like. You needed to get a center. You could not, if you're Rob Pelinka in this Laker front office, you could not walk away from the offseason with LeBron leaving, Marcus Smart leaving, Rui Hachimura leaving. They needed to make these moves. They did. They swung. They finally hit on Walker Kessler. So it's just, it's something they had to do. And this is Luka's team now. They needed to satisfy Luka Doncic. They have committed $480 million to these three guys. So this is their future right here. This is what they have made it clear that they need to. They know who they need and they know who they want going forward. And they've committed a lot of money and a lot of their future. They don't control a first round pick until 2033. So it's rough for me. I don't think this is a contending team, but I think it's a move they had to make. All right, the biggest question of the NBA offseason is, where is LeBron James playing? The LeBron Sweepstakes are still ongoing. Since we talked last episode, he has announced that he will play elsewhere next season. He is playing next year, but it is not in a Laker uniform. We also found out that this decision is not financially driven. This is not a money decision. This is strictly a happiness decision. Now, whatever that means for LeBron James, I don't know, but it is not a money decision, which makes this very interesting because it puts a lot of teams in the running. In fact, LeBron James told his agent to go out and take phone calls from all teams in the league and come back to him with a list of options so that he can choose. So that puts a lot of teams in the running. But what we've seen is the main frontrunners are the Golden State Warriors, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Miami Heat. Now, obviously, he's won championships with two of those teams, and one of those he's had a historic rivalry with. So I ask you, what do you think is the best fit? Which team do you think is the best fit for LeBron James, not only to win a championship, but also to be happy? And where would you like to see him play?
I think the best fit for him, obviously, is going back home to Cleveland. To restart his career, I think the fans would go crazy, first off. But if you look at that roster, you see Evan Mobley, you see Jared Allen, you see James Harden, you see Donovan Mitchell. You don't see that guy at forward who's the guy. You have LeBron James. You have a key piece and a star player. Basically a star player at every single position. He'd fit amazing. You'd give more depth, first off, to a team that went to the East, or not, I don't know if they went. Yeah, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. So, yeah, that'd be a great pickup for Cleveland. The Warriors, it's an aging dynasty. You got Curry at the back end of his career. You have Jimmy Butler getting old. Kristaps, he's kind of old. I think it'd be a good fit, though. Curry's still playing at an excellent space in his career. LeBron can obviously help. If they're going to win now, which they are, you have Yaxel on the board, who's old, the oldest draft pick, or one of the oldest draft picks in the draft, behind Richie Saunders. But Yeah, LeBron can mentor Yaks, and I would like to pick up for the Warriors. The Heat, I don't know how I feel about it. You obviously just got Giannis, and you gave up pretty much your entire roster. You need guard play. LeBron obviously can help, not with guard play, but LeBron can help win this team with a win now team. You got Giannis towards his prime. You got Bam towards his prime. He just scored 83 points. But yeah, LeBron to the Heat. I think that out of these three makes the least sense. But no matter what, I mean, LeBron is going to boost any team in free agency.
Yeah, I obviously the main fit, if he wants to go win a championship, which I assume that's what LeBron James wants to do. This guy is not going to come out and put his body through all this at 42 years old just to play meaningless basketball. He wants to play contending basketball. I don't care what he says about happiness, or he wants to play contending basketball. The best team for that would be the Cleveland Cavaliers. He has probably the most likely chance, and this is probably a one and done kind of year. This is probably a farewell tour. I don't see him really playing past this point, especially with the way he's talking about financials. So if you want to go and win a ring, it's with the Cleveland Cavaliers because they're the most complete team right now. They are. They simply are the most complete team. They've got James Harden, who I know declined his player option. However, he's waiting to sign depending on what LeBron James does. So he's making the unselfish move. He's allowing the Cavs to go out and make these money moves before he goes and signs his new deal. So you're going to have James Harden. You're going to have Donovan Mitchell. You slide LeBron in at the 3. You've got Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, an excellent front court. So it's to me, that's the best fit. Cleveland would have the most likely championship odds for him this year. However, I would like him to go to the Golden State Warriors. I don't think it's any secret about that. I would like him to go to Golden State. This is a team that has to win now. This is a team he has a lot of chemistry with, playing with Steph Curry. Obviously, played with him in 2024, down in Paris in the Olympics. He's been a long-time friend of Draymond Green, so they have a lot of chemistry already. I think he's a great fit. I like you said, LeBron's kind of a plug-and-place kind of guy. It's really like you're not going to find a team where he doesn't make better. He's one of the only guys you can really say that about in the entire league. So I really think Golden State, they'd be old. The problem is would you get them to 82 games plus a playoff run, into deep May and June? Probably not. It's going to be tough, but obviously, as a basketball fan, seeing Steph Curry and LeBron James play. Now, the problem with Golden State is it's become tougher for them. It has. And I think they honestly are no longer the favorites to land him. I know LeBron James said he would play for the vet minimum, which is 1 year, $3 million. Getting LeBron James for $3 million sounds surreal. But I think it's a little bit tougher for Golden State. They went out and re-signed Kristaps Porzingis to a 2-year, $40 million deal. They just signed DeAnthony Melton back to a 2-year, $11 million extension. This is it's tough because now they lose their full mid-level exception. They lose the $15 million non-taxpayer mid-level exception, which I talked about was how they get LeBron James and why they're the most likely to. To get that, unlock it, right now they'd only be able to sign him for about $6 million, which is what Cleveland would probably have to sign him for as well. But if you want to offer him more money, you'd have to do this. Moses Moody's making almost $13 million a year. He's injured for the entire year, basically. He had a torn patellar tendon last season, ended his season last year. That's a tough injury to come back from. He's rehabbing. I wouldn't like to get rid of Moses Moody, but Golden State's already kind of sacrificed their entire future by trading Kuminga away and going for a guy like LeBron James. So at this point, it's like I wouldn't even mind the salary dump. So you'd salary dump Moses Moody, that re-unlock the full mid-level exception. That's how Golden State would get him. It's tough, but I think the interesting thing for me is this LeBron free agency is much different than the last couple of years. It's very unique in the sense where 2014, 2018, 2010, when he went into free agency, the entire league was focused on LeBron James. They would not be able to move on with their offseason until they knew they had LeBron James. They would have to clear salary. They'd have to clear out about $50 million, and they'd have to wait. They'd put the whole league on halt. This time it's different. This time, LeBron gets to choose where he's going once the team is complete. See, when LeBron James would join a team, the teams wouldn't be complete. That's why you look at it, and no LeBron team that he has joined in free agency has won during the first year. They've won during the second or third year or the fourth year. They don't win the first year. And that's because they have to build a team around LeBron James normally when he joins their team. This time, He gets to look around at the league. What can you offer me? What does your team look like? He gets to see the full, complete team. These teams get to build their teams and then add LeBron James for $3, $6, $15 million. That's the difference between this free agency and previous ones. That's what makes it so interesting and so unpredictable. And also it's unpredictable because what does happiness mean for LeBron? Does it mean playing with Steph Curry and Draymond Green, two guys he's had long-term relationships with? Or does it mean going back to home where he started it all to end his career and have a cinematic storybook farewell tour? Don't know what it means for him. So that's why I think this free agency is completely unpredictable for him, and I'm very excited to see where this goes. It is July 3rd, and we still have no clue. And honestly, we could release this whenever it comes out, and he could have decided. We'll see. But to me, it's whatever team makes the moves necessary to land LeBron. We saw Golden State, and that's the thing. We've seen teams do this. Golden State, Draymond Green declines his option. That's a move it's trying to get LeBron James to come to the team. James Harden holds out on his player option in signing a new deal. That's a move we see to try to attract LeBron James. I thought Cleveland could have maybe done more. I thought Cleveland could have swung for Jaylen Brown. Obviously, he's off the market now, but and that's, I think, what Philly's trying to do. Philly's trying to be like, hey, we have Tyrese Maxey, VJ Hedgecomb, and Jaylen Brown, and Joel Embiid. Come join our team. And that's why Philly's kind of emerged as, contenders for it. I'm going to throw Miami out of the picture. I know I didn't talk about them at all, but I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I know he has history with the Heat, but to me, it just doesn't make any sense for him to go to Miami. So I don't know. It's a very interesting free agency period, so we'll see where this goes with LeBron James. All right, jumping into the next topic. Ja Morant is out of Memphis. Now, if you remember last episode, at the end of the show, I said by the time you're watching this, Ja Morant could have been traded. He got traded about an hour after we recorded that. So Ja Morant is officially on the move. His Memphis era comes to an end. A long, grueling, and really just kind of ugly era in Memphis, the way it ended. Obviously, he had such a promising start, but this was a decision that Memphis had to make. This is a guy who's been in and out of the lineup. He's played I think he played 29 games last year. He hasn't played above 60 or 56, which was the number I used with Paul George a little bit ago. He hasn't played enough games. He hasn't played a lot of games. He's been in and out of the lineup with injuries, suspensions, obviously doing things he shouldn't. So what do you think about this move for both teams? Memphis, to me, it's not very special. They get him for Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray. No picks. It's kind of a dull move, but it's a move they had to make. So what do you think about this move? Actually, what do you think about this move for Portland?
I actually like the move for Portland. I think Ja Morant, when he's healthy and he's actually playing, and when he's not being stupid, which, Portland has a little history with Chauncey Billups. But besides the point, Ja Morant's an amazing guard. We've obviously seen it. He's a high-flying. We've seen him in March Madness. We've seen him in the NBA. He's promising, but he needs to actually play. Now, if the Portland Trail Blazers can get Ja Morant and he actually plays for that team, that's a good team. It really is. You got Scoot Henderson. He's young. You got Donovan Clingan. He's young. You got Denny Avdia, which Denny Avdia was he's a really underrated guy. We saw it last year. He was the guy in that team, and they made the playoffs. So I like it for Portland if he plays. For Grizzlies, it still is an ugly time. It's an ugly time period. You just got Cameron Boozer in the draft, which he's a top 3 pick, generational player, and you have no team around him. You have no identity right now. Obviously you're in the rebuild, but you didn't even get a draft pick for Ja Morant, who was your star player. So you had Jeremy Grant, who's a aging guy. He's never really a superstar. And Chris Murray. The Grizzlies are just an ugly time period, to be honest. And the Grizzlies need to do something. They need to go. They need to figure out their front office and their coaching, and give a roster to your young superstar who you just drafted and a generational player in Cameron Boozer.
Yeah. So like I said, the game's played. I'll talk about that number one. Ja Morant has to play. For me to say this is a good trade for Portland, Ja Morant has to play. He's played 9 games in 2023 and 2024. He played 50 in 2024, 2025, and he played 20 last season. So this guy hasn't played. He really doesn't. And like you said, he's a promising young player. But some of the off-the-court distractions have to stop. Like, this guy has to play. I'd love to see Ja Morant blossom into the player he was when he was taking the Golden State Warriors to 6 games, dropping 40 points in Game 2. Like, this is what I need to see from him. For me to say this is a good trade for Portland, I have to see results. And the other thing is, I really think it's going to be awkward, the Dame and Ja pairing. I just think they're different. I do. And I think they're two ball-dominant guards who need the ball in their hands. Ja Morant is not doing anything for you if he doesn't have the ball in his hands all the time. He cannot shoot the 3 ball. He's not a catch-and-shoot guy. He has to have the ball in his hands. Same thing with Damian Lillard. This guy's really not a catch-and-shoot guy. He comes off screens, off-dribble 3-pointers. Like, to me, the fit doesn't really make a lot of sense. If you were Portland and you saw, and this is what's so interesting to me, if you're Portland and you just saw what Jaylen Brown went for, you have to be absolutely disappointed and disgraced with the move you just made. I think so. You have to be disappointed. Jaylen Brown went for Paul George and a couple of picks. To me, that's like, we could have made that move. We had the picks. They had 5 tradable picks, and they had young guys in Shaedon Sharpe and Donovan Clingan. They could have easily made that Jaylen Brown move. I thought that would have been a better move. I don't mind it. You know, they get better, obviously. They didn't trade away a lot. Didn't trade away draft capital. It's not like they're sacrificing their future here. It's an interesting move. And like you said with Memphis, like, you can just go ahead and put them in the Tyron Stokes sweepstakes. It's like, to me, I don't think it's going to get much better in Memphis for a while. So I feel sorry for the Grizzly fans. They really had a promising run too, which is the sad part. They were so promising a couple of years ago. And honestly, I hate to say it, but if you look at it, really all went downhill when Dillon Brooks left the team. I think they lost their identity, and I hate it because as much as I don't like Dillon Brooks, and as much scrutiny as he gets, they really lost their identity. Like, they did, and it really fell off. He left in 2023, 2024, and they haven't been good since. So it's tough for me, for both sides. I give about an average for Portland. I really don't think this is like a needle moving move. It's just, to me, after seeing what Jaylen Brown went for, it's like disappointing, because it's like you probably could have gotten Jaylen Brown very easily, for what Boston just traded him for. So, Memphis, like you said, there's not much to say about Memphis. It's just like they're in rebuild. They're just rebuilding. They're like any other rebuilding team. I'd put them and the Kings as probably the worst franchises in the league right now. It's just, it's really rough. So
It is.
I don't know what else to say about Memphis. That's really just my take. I know it's negative, but that's what I think about it right now. So we'll see what they do.
And I want to touch on what you said with Damian and Ja Morant. I completely agree with that. But we got to realize here, Damian Lillard is how old? He doesn't play in a lot of games.
30. He's 34, 30. He was hurt last year. He had a torn Achilles. He's coming back.
I know, but he's definitely old. He's not the same player he used to be. He's not the old He's not the old Portland Trailblazer Damian Lillard.
I'll get you your age. I'll get you your age for you. Hold on.
Thank you. I need to hear this. But
he's 35. He's 35.
35, and he just had an Achilles injury. You're on the back end of your career. You're basically almost done. You're not moving like how you used to move, like when you were on the old team. So, actually,
am I wrong for saying he's better than Ja? Am I wrong for saying Damian Lillard is still better than Ja Morant?
When Ja Morant's playing, he's 100% better. I don't think that's crazy to say
but when he's playing, and he's not off the court doing things he shouldn't do.
How many games did Damian Lillard play last year?
Okay, well, he was hurt, but like, if you look, how many games did he play last year? But yeah, but that was last year. This is a pattern for Ja. He hasn't played in 3 years. He hasn't played.
Ja Morant, it's because he's got new leadership. He's got a new front office and a new team around him, which is more promising than what he had at Memphis the past year. He could turn it around, and he could be smarter. If he's smarter, I love this trade for Portland. Damian Lillard he's on the back end of his career. Let's not act like he's some up-and-coming superstar. He's a fading superstar.
I mean, he's played below 58 games one time in his career.
Who?
Damian Lillard. He's played below 58 games one time in his career.
Yeah, but you're acting like he's not coming off an Achilles injury and 35 years old. He's not 24 and
Okay,
he's coming off an
yes,
Achilles
he will
injury.
digress. He will digress, but it's
He
just
has been digressing.
to me he I guess, but it's just like to me it's like I don't. You know what? Like, I think we're arguing the same thing here. We both think that Portland's not going to be good after this move. Like we both think they're not going to be that good. So like I think we both think this isn't like a wow they're contenders type of move. Like this isn't like a jaw dropping trade.
I
This
agree.
isn't
I
like
agree.
if they got Jaylen Brown, I would have been like okay, like Portland's going to be nice. Like this is a playing team, but to me the fit doesn't make sense. Why are you going after John Morant instead of Jaylen Brown? Jaylen Brown was sitting there right on the table.
I'm just saying, it's not a good fit at all for right now. But if Damian Lillard leaves in a couple years, or a year or two, just because he's so old and his body's going through it, that could be a good fit. It could be.
I'd love to trust John Morant, but I just
Yeah,
he
I
hasn't
agree.
he
If
hasn't
they
done
try- if they
it right.
try to trust Embiid,
Yes, exactly, and it's like trying to
agree.
trust Anthony Davis right now. It's the same thing. It's like to me,
I
I
agree.
love what Washington's building, but the problem is Anthony Davis is always hurt. So like, are we gonna get to see Trae Young, Debanza, and Anthony Davis? Are we gonna get to see Jaylen Brown, VJ Edgecombe, Maxey, and Embiid? Like it's just those type of things where it makes me iffy, and especially with John Morant. Like those other guys, I've seen it, but the problem with John Morant is when he's on the court, he still hasn't been that good. He has still not been the player that we used to watch and what we fell in love with. I fell in love with his game. He had such an entertaining game a couple years ago, but now he's lost that step, in my opinion. Somehow he's only 26 years old, so it's like to me, it's like yeah, he doesn't play, so I can't trust him there. But also, when he does play, is he really moving the needle for Portland? I just don't think so. Alrighty, to wrap up this second edition of Mic'd Up, we're going to be talking about some other key free agent signings that we thought were notable. Number one would be Norman Powell to the Chicago Bulls on a 2-year, $45 million deal. I'll start. To me, I mean, it's a good move for Chicago. You get better. I mean, there's not much I can really say about this one because, Chicago's a team where they're in an interesting spot right now. They're kind of flirting with the play-in tournament and the lottery, so it's like they're in an interesting spot. I like the move. This is obviously something, if you're Miami, you would have loved to keep Norman Powell. I just don't think the money really made sense there. And they got Tim Hardaway Jr., which is another guy to mention. So he doesn't replace Norman Powell, especially with scoring, but he's still a shooter who can be a key piece for them. Center him around Giannis and Bam. Norman Powell, he's a guy who has averaged near 22 a game the last 2 seasons. Obviously had a breakout year this year, made the All-Star game. He shoots nearly 40% and about 7 attempts per game from deep. That's a pretty good move. You're getting pretty good value. Was that 2 years, $45 million? So we're looking at what, $22.5 million annually? That's pretty good. So I like the move for Chicago.
Yeah, I think it's a great move for Chicago. You have an interesting team right now with your star players being Josh Giddey and your drafted Caleb Wilson. And I think Caleb Wilson, it's might be a hot take, but I think he could be arguably the best or second best player in the draft. I love Caleb Wilson.
There's so many of those. I don't think that's a hot take at all. There's so many guys. That entire top 5 or top 4, they all could have been realistically number 1 picks. That's why it was so unpredictable.
I agree.
But keep going.
So, I do like this move. I think it's an interesting team, and they're in an interesting spot. So we'll see how it plays out. You get a star play. Norman Powell could be a guy. He could be a star player. I mean, I was listening to him. You listen to his stats. 22 points a game is great. 40% from 3 on 7 attempts a game. You're gonna get product from Norman Powell. So I like to give some more guard depth to Caleb Wilson and trying to build around Caleb Wilson.
Absolutely. I like the move. Obviously, Miami kind of sucks, but again, not financially possible. Moving on, John Collins to the Detroit Pistons on a 3-year, $51 million deal. He replaces Tobias Harris, who exits to the San Antonio Spurs. What do you think about the move for the Pistons here?
I love this move for the Pistons. 3 years, $51 million is not a lot for salary. I mean, it's definitely something, but it's not a lot. We can work with it. Collins shot 40% from 3. I mean, Tobias was our second guy. He was our second option, which is is not a championship winning team, to be honest. Tobias Harris is not a second option guy, and neither is John Collins.
Right.
But I do like the move better. I like having John Collins better than Tobias Harris. I think John Collins is probably more efficient down low too than Tobias. But either way, the Pistons' biggest need right now, you got to go get another option, a second scoring option.
Yeah, Detroit is in a very interesting spot. They have a lot of key moves to make. I thought this was a good one. John Collins, I think he's got more upside and more obviously explosivity than Tobias Harris. He's a better lob threat for Cade Cunningham, and like you said, he shoots 40% from three, which I was kind of surprised to find out about. That's a pretty good clip. And, he's attempting almost 3 or 4 a game, so it's not like he's not shooting. So that's pretty good. Pretty good output from him. Detroit is just in an interesting spot, though. At this point, they've got to retain Jaylen Duren. To me, if you're not going to go out and make, if they were going to go out and make other moves, I'd be like, okay, maybe it's fine if you let him walk. At this point, Detroit has missed on almost every big move that they set out for. I don't think they're going to get LeBron if that's what they're waiting on. They didn't get Tyler Hero. They didn't get Austin Reeves. It's just like you've missed on every move so far. At this point, with the team you have right now, you have to bring back Jaylen Duren. I mean, you got to pay him at this point. And the best part is he is a restricted free agent. So whatever, I know he had a meeting with the Lakers. Now the Lakers obviously chose their guy. But Jaylen Duren, to me, you got to match whatever it is. Whatever amount of money you have to do to get him to stay, you've got to go out and do it. It's just, to me, they don't have the team without him right now. Like, this team would significantly... I know he did not play well in the playoffs. I get it. There's a lot of skepticism and criticism when it comes to signing him again after the playoff run he had. But that's 14 games. And what we've seen, from Jaylen Duren do, he was almost a 20-10 guy in the regular season. He's improved year to year. We've seen it. We've seen this as a guy who knows how to improve. He was not a highly touted prospect coming out of the draft. But he's improved, and he's become, an all-star level player. So it's just like, this guy will improve. He'll get better. I think you have to keep Jaylen Duren. That's my take on the Pistons. Right now, they're just in a spot where they've missed on everything. Let's get the guy that we know that we can get. And I think it'll end up happening. I think he'll end up re-signing. So that's just my take on Detroit. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
this is my biggest beef with Pistons fans, fellow Pistons fans. I don't know why they want Jaylen Duren gone so bad. Everyone's saying trade him, trade him, trade him. He is 22 years old and was on a third NBA or all-third NBA team. Why do you guys want him out so bad? He had one bad stretch in the playoffs. He is 22 years old. Give the guy a break. We've seen young stars. Brandon Ingram just sucks in the playoffs. He's way older and been doing this. Give Jaylen Duren a break. I generally don't understand the Jaylen Duren hate and why everyone wants him gone so bad. He had one bad playoff series. Give the guy a break. Let him come back to a team that, realize the Pistons were a 1 seed last year, right? A 1 seed, and Cade Cunningham had a 15-game spurt where he was injured, and we were winning those games. Probably back end of it was Duren and Asar Thompson. I don't understand the Jaylen Duren hate whatsoever. It makes no sense to me. He is 22 years old, an All-NBA third-team selection, and an All-Star, 20-10 in the regular season. I don't understand the hate whatsoever.
I agree, and it's just the fact that you're not going to get anything better right now. You're not. There's no center on the market right now that you're going to get better, and there's no other option anymore. There's no options anymore. You have to bring back Jaylen Duren.
You could argue Jaylen Duren's a top 5 center in the league. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me why people want him gone as a Pistons fan.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing with Jordan Poole a couple years ago. I know he got punched in the face by Draymond Green, but that's beside the point. I think when he had that bad playoff run, they wanted him gone. He got traded the next year or in the offseason. Yeah. So it's just this is what teams do. They see a couple of games in the playoffs. Okay, you're not giving us enough output in the games that we've seen you in the playoffs, and so you're going to get traded. I think that's the wrong move with Jaylen Duren. This is a guy again who was in he was most improved player talks, right? So this guy has the ability to improve, and I think he will. And I think again, if you can go out and get Jaylen Brown, 100%, but you can't. Yeah. You can't get anybody. So re-sign Jaylen Duren. It's not that hard right now.
Yeah.
And then another signing I want to talk about is Luke Kennard going to the Suns. I thought that was a big deal. And the reason I thought that was kind of a big deal, you can include Marcus Smart in this as well. The reason I think that's a big deal is the Lakers. It's what pushed the Lakers to make all these moves. You lose Luke Kennard, who was arguably your second leading scorer during that first round series against Houston. So you lose a shooter who you replace with Quentin Grimes. So Phoenix gains a shooter to put around Devin Booker, Jaylen Green. They got I think they got a nice little team going on down there. And then you lose Marcus Smart. To me, that's a huge loss. That's a huge loss for the Lakers and a big game for the Rockets. Now you're going to have Fred VanVleet backed up by Marcus Smart. That's pretty good. That's not bad if you're Houston. And this is going from a team who didn't have any point guard depth a year ago. They had Amen Thompson starting at the point. Like, you were never going to win with that because Amen Thompson's not meant to be a point guard. So I like the move for Houston. And I compared it to Colin Sexton with the Lakers. And then the Lakers are also about to lose Rui Hachimura, it looks like. That to me is big. If San Antonio gets Rui Hachimura, the league better look out. I'm just going to say that. Because I think they're immediate. Like, that is, this guy shot 56% from three this year. Like, that is lights out. He shot 56% from three. You're giving that to Wemby and the Spurs, who already just were in the finals. That's a big move. So I don't know if you have any takes on those, but I thought those were some notable moves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to say right now. I mean, it's definitely the free agency. The main talks now are LeBron James and the trades that have been happening. This is the greatest offseason we've had in a long time. So I mean, when you hear notable names like Jaylen Brown and John Morant, LeBron, some of those like names like Luke Kennard, Marcus Smart get swept under the rug, Rui Hachimura, and I think you brought a good. I like that you brought him up, but for me personally, I don't have too much to say about him.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a breaking news kind of move, but it is something that I think if you're looking at the landscape of teams, like when you're talking about a team like San Antonio and you're gonna let them get a guy who just shot 56% from three and is an elite, 3-and-D type of player. That's a big deal because I think if that's a huge move for San Antonio. Maybe I'm overreacting too much to Rui Hachimura, but I really like him as a piece. Like, if the Warriors got him, I'd be happy. Like, maybe not over LeBron, but I'd still be happy. So, but that is gonna wrap up this edition of Mic'd Up. I thought we had a great show today. A lot of moves going on. Stay tuned with LeBron James. Maybe the next time we speak, LeBron is on a different team and we can actually say, hey, he's here instead of just speculating like we've been. But that's up to LeBron and wherever his happiness is. So we'll see. Hopefully it's with the Warriors. Hopefully he's a Golden State Warrior. But, obviously, thank you to Brady for taking time out of his day to meet with me and come on the show again. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you for listening.